Hi, I'm Julio Sainz along with Mauricio Riveros. Today we'll meet Mike Rodriguez, a high school dropout who's now celebrating his 15th year of running his own successful business.
We hope you will be inspired.
Celebrating leaders in Rochester's unique and vibrant business community, we'll meet entrepreneurs whose passion and perseverance have helped push through life's challenges. Join us as we share their stories and journeys to success. It's time to be inspired.
Mike, thank you very much for being in Be Inspired, a show that we developed to inspire our community, to invite and interview people like you, who are innovators, who are business entrepreneurs, people who start businesses, and people who are developing or maybe develop already, good businesses. So in your case, Mike, tell us a little bit about your story. Who is Mike?
Well, my name is Mike Rodriguez, owner of Mike's Auto Sales and Service. Been in business for 18 years now, since February of '01. I never thought it was going to take off the way it did, but thank God. I look at it as a blessing, and it's been going pretty well. And originally I started with auto sales, and now it's grown into other fields in the automotive industry. I mean, I'm doing collision now. Other ventures that started with Mike's Auto Sales, but I spread out into other things now.
Sure, you have like a full service garage now, right?
Full service, auto repair and collision, we do it all. Anything that has to do with automobiles, Mike's Auto Sales does it.
So Mike, you went and received training, so tell us a little bit about the early start in your life.
Well, that's why no one can believe, how far I've gotten, because, I don't have a high school education. I only made it to the 10th grade, and, everyone sees me and says, man, what school did you go to? What college did you go to? And I didn't. I went through a little, bump in the road growing up, and dropped out of high school. And was forced to go get a full-time job. And every job I landed, I just had something in me where, I would always get promotions. I was always, going to the next level, just climbing the ladder. Once I got my foot in the door, I always found a way to get to the top. And then, I finally got to a point where I says, you know what, I don't want to work for anyone anymore. I'd rather do my own thing. And I had a friend of mine who was in the business, and I kind of picked his brain a little bit. And he gave me enough information for me to run with it, and started my own shop. And that was, like I said, back in 2001.
Wow. And what do you think was there a particular moment, or it was just over time that you decided, I want to start my own business and I think I can do this?
I always knew I wanted to. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. Back then, growing up, I was installing sound systems. I don't know if you guys remember, back in that era, the
booming system.
The booming system was pretty big. There was a lot of money in that, and I was very good at installing them in people's vehicles, and that's probably why I'm a little hard of hearing now. But I started doing that, and I made good money, for not having an education, but I was back then, bringing in enough money to support myself. I still lived with mom and dad, but they didn't have to help me with anything. I would if I wanted something, I'd buy it, and so I would do that on the side. And again, I was still putting in 40 hours a week at my full-time job. So I kind of had, I wanted to do something. I just didn't know what it was. So I would always listen to people talk and always try to find, is that for me? Well, maybe not. Maybe this is for me. And, finally, I've always liked cars. And I had a friend who had gotten his dealer's license. And so I kind of picked his brain. And from there, just took off. And now, like I said, 18 years strong. And it's not stopping. Now I'm looking at a building to buy that's going to come up available. And I'm talking with the owner now. So hopefully if I can get that building, then I think that's a big move for Mike's Auto, because all these years, you don't want to pay rent to someone else. I'd rather, own my own. And sure. I think that opportunity is right around the corner. So I'm kind of excited about that, and hopefully, God willing, it'll fall through for me.
What I love of your story is that some people say, well, if I don't have education, then they start justifying why they cannot be successful.
Right.
And they start finding this, well, I am not able, but you were able to actually achieve success and be able to really transform the thinking. Now, what was that step? Because you decided, okay, I want to do my own business. Right. I want to take the risk. That's a big risk. It's a big step of faith.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, what was the tipping point for that decision?
Well, you know, money was an issue. I didn't have much of it, so I think I took a real big risk because I got my income tax returned. I got married at an early age, 20 years old, and at 20 years old, I bought my first home, which is now one of my rental properties, and I've owned it now for 25 years, and it's paid in full. And my wife at the time, you know, she thought I was crazy because I got $5,000 and some of it was her money. So I took that money and I just invested it in my first 2 vehicles. I says, you know what? You got to spend money to make money, and you have to take chances. And I did it. Whether, you know, it could have went bad, it could have went good, and thank God again. I always, you know, give him all the thanks, and that, you know, it worked out pretty good. And I sold my first 2 vehicles, and in less than a year, I went from owning 2 vehicles, you know, for my business, and I was up to 20 vehicles. So it kind of just, like I said, it just took off, and you know, everyone that speaks to me nowadays that knows me says, man, it's just hard to believe how far you've come and what you have achieved. Mm-hmm. And with no education, you know, I mean, 10th grade is really nowadays, that's nothing. So, yeah.
Now, no one likes to get a bill for car repair. How do you handle customer service in your business?
Well, I think with me in that part of the business, I think I've come a long way because honesty comes a long way in the auto repair business. You know, the biggest complaint I hear from my customers is they went somewhere else and got ripped off. That's what they always seem to say. So I try to be very clear when I'm speaking with them, you know, as far as their vehicle goes. And try to, if there's any kind of confusion, I even sometimes bring them out into the shop, explain what's going on, and you know, and then give them the breakdown of what they're paying for, what to expect after the vehicle, they pick the vehicle up. So a lot of people like that, especially women. I got a lot of clientele women, not because I'm good looking, but they just, they always seem to think that they're getting ripped off when their vehicles need repair, and they go in without a guy or a man to get advice on their vehicles. So they always feel like they're being taken advantage of. And I guess, I don't know if it's because I grew up in a Christian home. My parents, you know, served the Lord, you know, and brought me up in a Christian home. And I just don't have it in me to rip someone off. So when someone comes to me, I have to be very clear and truthful and tell them exactly what they need and not sell them something they don't need.
Now, the industry is changing. The car production and cars in general, before I remember, you know, trying to buy the first car was like a big effort. But now the leasing opportunities, you can get a completely new car for $125 leasing. And so become a challenge for you guys who are more the traditional type of dealers. How you are seeing the future in terms of the car industry? What's your perspective?
Yeah, I worry a little bit about that. But you know what? As the technology gets better, we kind of, there's a lot of programs out there. Like all the people who sell me the parts, they have a lot of training seminars. So I attend a lot of them. That's why if you go to my office, you'll see all the little plaques on the wall. And those are, and they're seminars, and they'll train you on new products, what's out there, what's the best way to go about, you know, handling. The biggest thing now is the tire pressure monitoring systems. So I took a training on that, anti-lock brakes, where, you know, back in the days, none of that assisted. You know, it was all regular hydraulic brakes. If you slide, you slide. You had to pump them yourself. So, there's a lot of trainings that go on, and I try to take advantage because they're free. They're no charge. So, and even if I didn't take advantage of my education back then, but now they give me the opportunity, I jump on it just to stay on top of the game and just be good at what I do and offer my customers the best. So, yeah.
And you spoke about your staff and how you pay them a salary so they don't have to push things to get a commission or anything. How do you go about picking the right people for your business that are going to represent your philosophy?
Yeah, well, everyone that starts, there's a little probation period, because a lot of times, some people, they can present a pretty impressive resume, but when you really put them to the test, it's not what you saw on that resume. So I like to go more by, seeing them working and how they handle things, how quick they can get something done, and that comes along with my experience. I've seen guys that have been to school for auto repair, and I've seen others that haven't, and the ones that haven't are better techs than the ones that have been to school. So it's more of a try. I try them out and see, and when I get that good feeling that he knows what he's doing, then I bring him. I leave him permanent.
Well, thank you, Mike. We'll be back with more after these messages.
What are the basic recommendations? And now there's a lot of products out there and people are offering this thing. You have a lot of experience dealing with winter for many years.
Yeah.
What would be the best recommendation to deal with this type of environment to protect your car and your investment?
Yeah, I would say keeping the car clean. Not when it's 0 degrees out, you don't want to do that. But when you know that there was a winter storm and your vehicle has been exposed to salt, the best thing to do is once the weather gets better is to get that washed off, run it through the car wash, because the salt really doesn't do any damage when it's 0 degrees out. The salt does the most damage when you leave it on the vehicle and then the weather gets hot or warms up. And that's when it starts to eat away at your finish, at the vehicle's finish. So the most important thing is keeping the salt off the vehicle. There are other things, undercoating. A lot of people like to, try that. But honestly, I've seen vehicles with undercoat and they're still rusted. So it might help, but at the end of the day, if you don't wash your vehicle, it's gonna, the salt is like cancer. It will do some damage. And that's what makes it harder for us where we live, our mechanics, is because if you when we get cars from Florida, from Pennsylvania even, they use sand over there.
How are you using technology in your business? Are you using, I'm sure you're using some social media, but as far as like even managing the business, the bookkeeping or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, I have an accountant. I hired an accountant because, again, I never had any idea, and my worst subject was math. So I never had any idea I was going to get it to where I am now. So I hired a reputable accountant that was recommended to me by a local real estate guy who owns a lot of properties in the area. So he put me on with them, and they keep me in track with that. And then at the shop, there's a lot of softwares out there for automotive, to the point where you can do the invoices for the customers. You can quote the job. It'll tell you how much time is involved, so you can give them the right price according to the labor. So there's a lot of stuff out there for us, a lot of tools that are very helpful. So it's really not that hard anymore. So even without my education, I can get by. It makes it really easy with all the tools that we have now. Yeah.
Well, that's very important, Mike. And going to the practical questions, there is always the dilemma to buy or to lease a car. There's a lot of arguments and analysis and all that. People say, well, buy your car because in that way you don't need to pay the lease, you own something. Other people, no, I want to lease 2 years, 3 years, a new car again. What's your recommendation around this?
Well,
this topic?
I hear it all the time. I think, they're so affordable now, the leases, that, if you're able to, I highly suggest it, because most of the maintenance, you know, you don't get hit with that. You know, the dealer does. As long as you stay within, you know, the mileage that they tell you, you know, whether it's 10,000, 12,000, it's a no-brainer. Yeah, you're going to have to maybe put a set of tires on it before you turn it back in. But sometimes, you know, an auto repair bill can get up to $1,500, you know, to $2,000. Perfect example today, I had a lady and I felt so bad for her. She brought me a 2010 Chevy Traverse. It's not that old, still looks beautiful, but the engine is shot. And she says, well, Mike, you know, what am I gonna do? I bought the vehicle from day one, I was having problems. The people who sold it to me were dishonest. I says, I don't know what to tell you, but in order to do this job, you're looking at, you know, a good $3,500. She says, I don't have it. Sure. So at the end of the day, you know, she had to call a junkyard and they picked up the vehicle and took it away. So, you know, where if, you know, she would have been leasing the vehicle for $199 a month, like you see on TV most of the time, you know, she wouldn't be dealing with that problem right now. She'd be driving a newer vehicle. So if you're able to do it, I think I'd recommend it. Because in Rochester, you buy a vehicle, and after you're done paying for it, it's already rusted out because, again, what we were talking about, the salt. So what's the point? You know, you're going to buy it new, keep it, and then when you're done paying for it, you got to go buy a new one because it's all rotted out. So where we live, I would recommend leasing, definitely.
Now, Mauricio usually asks this question, but I'm so curious myself because I didn't know that you hadn't finished high school. I thought you had gone to college and all these.
No,
I thought all of those things.
No education.
Because I'm just so impressed with what you've done in the business world. What would you say to someone that's sitting at on the couch watching our show?
I say stay in school.
Well, okay, all right. Let's fast forward.
Not everyone's as lucky or blessed as I am.
Right,
So
well,
stay in school.
Maybe not under your circumstances, which are amazing. Someone that's at home, maybe they're down on their luck. They're discouraged, but they're watching the show because they have an idea for a business and are thinking of throwing their hat in the ring. What would you say to them?
Well, you know, again, you know, I've always said, you know, to make money, you have to spend money. Just make sure before you do, you've done your homework and you know what's involved and look into it. There's so much. I got a letter in the mail not too long ago. It was a program in downtown Rochester for new businesses, and they'll help you start a business. So there's so much out there right now. Where you can just, you know, get information. I would say get the most information that you can, and then if you do have a little bit of money to get started, then go for it. You know, if you fail, then just go back to what you were doing. You just go work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, like normal people do. But if you don't go for it, you're never going to know whether you're going to make it or not. You have to go for it. So, you know, it's again, I even do snow removal. I didn't know anything about that. And now I got people knocking at my door at my home. Hey, are you still doing it? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it for you. So I got my hands in everything. Real estate. I started with my first home when I was 20 years old. I bought a HUD home off of Hudson Avenue on Warsaw Street. And back then it was $23,000. I still own the home. It's rented out. I get, you know, monthly income. And if I wanted to turn around and sell it now, I could still probably get about $40,000 for the house. So, you know, it's you got to get your hands in what you feel comfortable with. And sometimes I didn't feel comfortable, and sometimes I said, you know what, I'm going to try it. And I haven't failed yet. I do snow removal. I have rental properties. I'm a landlord. And I do the automotive, the auto repair. I do collision. So I do the snow removal. So I got my hands in everything. So if one doesn't do good, the other one kicks in. So there's always money, you know, coming in. So
I love your attitude, and I love the focus and the capacity to reinvent yourself, and that is fundamental for success in life.
Right.
Is be able to, you know, have different hats and wear different hats and be able to be successful around those hats. Now, giving back to community. You are very involved with the community. So tell us a little bit of how in your company is the philosophy about community involvement and giving back to community?
Oh, I try to always, you know, get involved. Like, for example, with the Puerto Rican Festival. Actually, we just did the Tito Rojas. We were one of the sponsors there. You know, the Puerto Rican parade, we attended and were involved with the Puerto Rican parade. And, you know, and a lot of stuff. In my church, you know, I've also, you know, donated, you know, to help, you know, several causes. So I always try to get involved with something or get my name out there, you know, whether it's on the TV or the radio or just donations or whatever it may take, just to get, you know, Mike's Auto Sales a good standing with the community, you know, especially the Latino community. It's very important to me because that's, you know, where I grew up. I was born and raised here, so.
Mike, really was an honor to have you today.
Yes, thank
and
you.
what an inspiration in your life. We wish you the best, and I am sure that you know, we will have you back in our show to see the progress that Mike Auto Sales has done. Thank you very much for coming today.
Yes, thank you.
Coming up next week, we'll meet Dina Porterfield, president of Roberts Wesleyan College. To watch today's episode and the complete interviews of our guests, go to rochesterfirst.com/be-inspired. For more great talk with Rochester's entrepreneurs, listen to Poder 97.1, Saturdays at 9 a.m. For Mauricio Riveros, I'm Julio Sáenz. We'll see you next week on Be Inspired.